Virgil van Dijk won't be as busy this weekend as he was last weekend. He's been charged by the FA for acting in an improper manner after being sent off in Liverpool's win over Newcastle at the weekend. An FA spokesperson said Virgil van Dijk has been charged with the breach of FA rule E3.1 following Liverpool's Premier League game against Newcastle United on Sunday. It's alleged the defender acted in an improper manner and/or used abusive and/or insulting words towards a match official after being sent off in the 29th minute of the game. Virgil van Dijk has until Friday the September the 1st to provide a response to this charge. They had to do this, Danny, didn't they? Bearing in mind the charter that everybody signed prior to the start of the season.
Yeah, inevitable. I spoke about it on Monday. I think there's an example that they're going to have to set, of course, especially with this high bar they're talking about on cutting down on this petulance, and I think time wasting and stuff like that's a little bit different than this. But I think we do have to be careful because we were talking earlier, weren't we? And I think you brought up a good point that I was talking about Monday night actually regarding the emotional aspect of football and the passion and how you contain that. I mean, I remember getting sent off a couple of times, and one time particularly having a good old go at the ref. And next time I saw him, I apologised. He laughed. We shook hands and we cracked on in the next game with a bit of banter.
Which is absolutely fine, because one of the thing that I was saying to you is that we as supporters, we all want our players to show passion.
Of course.
We champion. One of the great beauties of the Premier League is that all of our players play with passion. And if you try to sort of try and say we need that, but don't do that bit, don't be upset when you get sent off, that's not going to work, and at some stages it's going to spill over. The issue here is that it's spilt over on too many occasions now, and they're trying to contain it.
This is it. Whatever is going on now with this correction has been brought about. We're not in the space where we had this tirade of abuse levied at referees, as we did in the late 90s, early 2000s with Manchester United players haranguing referees up the pitch and down the pitch. But we are in a space now where there is a balance of power in the game about who is got the authority on the pitch. And I've written an article tomorrow about referees needing to re-engage that. It's one thing showing passion. It's another thing Liverpool captain turning around to the referee and telling him he's an effing joke. It's another thing him walking off the pitch and a fourth official, for whatever reason, best possessed him, wanting to shake his hand and telling him, don't touch me. Right? These are the sort of attitudes that you don't necessarily need to see from leaders on football pitches or football players passing it off as passion. That's not passion, that's disrespect. There's a difference. And I'm all for wanting my players to be able to get involved, not to take things lightly, not to be happy when they're substituted, not to be delighted when there's a penalty awarded against them. But there is also a balance between that and the culture of players which has crept in, that you saw with Andy Robertson last year, that you saw with Bruno Fernandes, that you've seen crept in the game. And I think the referees are absolutely, I think they've got to up their game, but I think they've absolutely right to go, that's it, line's been drawn now.
What's the appropriate punishment here? And does it send a message?
Well,
what's the punishment which turns around to everybody else and says don't do it?
I think they'll give him one more game.
So he'll be banned for 2?
Yeah, I think so. I think anything more than that would be really harsh. But do you think there's a different side? Because you mentioned a sentence there, and I know you just flippantly did, but you know where you say you're a effing joke?
Yeah.
If I say that without any physical intimidation or a point in the face, or there's things when I played, and I don't want to live in the past, but say dark ages then, the past, but there was something more healthy about the relationship I felt we had with referees then, where although sometimes it crossed the line, you could let some emotion go and vent, and they'd manage you. And they'd help you come out, get over it, even joke with you along, get it out of you, and not.
But it wasn't a two-way transaction, was it? Because referees had that dynamic
it was.
with you. Well,
to a degree,
again,
it was.
I go back to the interview that I did with Mike Dean, and that has been eviscerated by certain sections of the media because of some of the things he said. But he'd have a dynamic with players, and he'd say things to players in the same context, and players would take offence at it. So it was a one-way transaction. It was basically, you can vent your spleen at a referee, but if a referee says, "Shut up, you're having a crap game," all of a sudden offended on behalf of the players' union.
But also that came later, because that wasn't when.
But also, there's another issue here, isn't there? And the issue is this: it's the fact that actually we've got to a situation where we can't recruit referees anymore because players down the food chain in grassroots football are copying the actions of the footballers in the Premier League, and those actions have got to a point now where when they're transmitted down the food chain, they're causing physical problems for those referees. They're deterring people from taking up the whistle, and therefore, ultimately, over a longer period of time, we're reducing the number of people that are coming through the ranks and lowering the standards of referees.
I think it's a bit of
an
easy thing to say that it depends what you're saying. They copy. You know, I can talk from
grassroots referees will tell you that happens. We have that. Whenever we have this debate on the show, they always
they're more comfortable being aggressive, you mean? Or you're talking verbally or what
they
aspect
have physical violence. Yeah. That big they get. We've got a referee that works on this show that's been confronted by parents, by kids, by people who are standing on the sidelines watching these games.
But I think if you're in children's football, I think if you've got parents and children who are behaving that way towards referees, they're far past being able to be influenced by what they're watching on television, for God's sake. They're ridiculous people.
If the argument is a lazy argument, and I don't think it is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't clear up the top of the game so that argument is removed. If the behaviour still manifests itself in grassroots football, and yet the professional game has operated at a higher level than it's currently operating, whatever the players are getting now, and I think there's a slight over-egging of the pudding, right? Because everything happens. When you correct something, what happens is you're too far to the left, you go too far to the right, and then you calibrate in the middle. Yeah. But they brought it upon themselves. These ridiculous leading voices in football, having the sheer barefaced audacity to complain about the extra amount of times being played in games, whilst it's their players that are creating those outcomes. It's the ridiculousness, and I make the referees absolutely right to start stamping down.
Is there a case though here, Danny? And Mikel Arteta told me this last Monday night, that actually we're in a new era here, we're all getting used to it, and it's all going to be a bit of a difficult situation for us because we haven't had time to acclimatise to this new situation. Should there have been better communication? Should there have been more of a sort of practice run-up? Should we have had Premier League referees employing these new rules in effect, these new guidelines in effect during pre-season matches to get them ready? That was a suggestion from Mikel Arteta. Or was it communicated? I mean, I got the email 3 or 4 times about the charter. I don't know about you. Or was it communicated well enough so that they should have started this season knowing full well what was going to happen?
In an ideal world, yeah, but I think sometimes you can't have that for different reasons, and they've been presented, people know them, and you've just got to get on. There will be what Simon's saying is right. Some players and managers, I think, are going to suffer because of previous bad behaviour of others, and Van Dijk's probably an example of that. So I take that point on board. I think it's right, but no, I did say this because I did say this I think last week on the show with Simon about them learning about the charter really late. But ultimately,
it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference.
I was just going to say, would it really have mattered?
Whatever they haven't got is the reasons why they explain their behaviour in real time. The bottom line is they got into these habits pretty quick. They can get out of these habits pretty quick. The fact of the matter is we had managers calling referees cheats.
Yeah, which you can't do.
Which you cannot do. What was happening was that the culture of football is often about liberties. Push and CFR you can get, and you tolerate it, and all of a sudden something enormous happens and everyone blows up. The scenarios that were beginning to happen now was the norm was players being able to talk to referees in a certain way. The players now getting to the point where there was altercations where we've got an official...
They were pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, and they've pushed them far enough now.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've got a new guy in top, and Howard Webb's gone, that'll do.
Yeah.
I'm coming in now and I'm going to fix this and I'm going to lead it and I'm going to start emboldening my referees. And that will mean he's also got up the standards of the referees. He's got to make sure that we've got this ridiculous characterisation.
That will take time. That's not going to happen overnight.
But there's this ridiculous characterisation, Sam. When we introduced VAR, somebody told every talking head that we were going to get 100% of every decision right. Well, human interaction that enables that not to be the case. So the characterisation of things, the vilification of referees in football is unique to football. It doesn't happen in any other sport, and it's a blot on our landscape because this is the greatest sport, this is the national sport, and it's the one that has the least respect in its culture.
And one of the biggest problems that actually it's nothing to do with the rereferees half the time, it's to do with the ridiculous way the laws are written. But that's another.
Just quickly though, I think we have to be really careful. What they've got to be really careful of is separating the two aspects of the petulance and time wasting stuff, and the plaudits we were given last season of the high bar set about letting the game flow and not every tackle is a foul, and when players go over doesn't mean it's a foul, because I thought that was really good last year. We had some great chats about it, didn't we? About referees really encouraging the game to go and not pulling it up forever just because someone screams when they go over doesn't mean they're fouled.
But by the way, the referee was at Fulham last night was allowing a lot to go.
So let's keep that going,
which they have.
And let's make sure we don't get a crossover.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some little mistakes on that, but the view coming out of the PGMOL prior to the season was we are going to keep that bar high. We want contact, not every contact. It's got to be significant contact in order for it to be a foul. Hi, Sam. The real issue here is that it's a Liverpool player and the media is littered with ex-Liverpool apologists. Van Dijk acted terribly and deserved to be sent off. If this was Bruno Fernandes, everyone would be saying he'd got what he deserved. That's Rob. I think he's talking to you.
You just said that Virgil van Dijk needs to be consequenced.
Yeah, I think the
and you're a Liverpool apologist.
Yeah, the reality is that's about likability of a player, not club. I understand his point because there is a lot of but it's about likability of the player. But Virgil van Dijk's quite a likable guy. Bruno Fernandes isn't. That's the simple argument. It's not about Man U and Liverpool.
Do you think Bruno Fernandes is likable, Sam?
I do, actually.
Only because you have to interview him.
And I thought
if you looked from afar,
my word, Sam Matterface.
Why would you lie?
I do like him. I've met him a couple of times.
He's a wonderfully gifted footballer who's very creative and got great skills, and you can enjoy watching him play.
It's a different culture to you.
He's not likeable. As a footballer, as a person, you've met him. He might be likeable. I'm not saying
that's what you asked me.
But you're nasty. You're now his mate, are you?
No, I've just spoke to him a couple of times. He's all right, quite nice.
Well,
he just wants to be able to speak to him again.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's about.
He's not particular. You can't watch him and think he's likeable.
You two sitting in your ivory tower. Some of us have to go into the muck and trenches.
I do, but he's not likeable. I probably wasn't very likeable. No, I mean as a footballer.
Well, that's different, isn't it? You know, he carries himself differently on the field of play.
He's saying he'd have got hammered. The reason players get hammered more than others a lot of the times because they're not very likeable from the perception from afar.
Very intuitive.
Not because
that's why he's clever.
Not because they see them playing with their kids on a swing and feeding dogs in a shelter. You know what I mean?
Well, because that's a disturbing set of images you're conjuring up there. Why would you be watching someone playing with their kids on a swing, Danny?
Danny, I think you should probably stop there before we start using the dump button.
Because I've got kids who play on swings.
03717 223344 if you want to get in touch. There's so much more to come on the show.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.